My name is Jeremy Wade.
Yes, 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 yes.
Explorer and extreme angler.
Yeah. Got a fish, got a fish.
In my journeys, I try to put myself in the right place at the right time. To investigate what happens to people in the wrong place at the wrong time. I've come to Colombia, considered the most dangerous country in South America, to investigate the tragic and horrific death of a bride murdered on her honeymoon. I need to piece together the moments before her death.
This is better fish, better fish, better fish.
To discover the identity of the Colombian slasher.
Sometimes what happens in just a fraction of a second can make the difference between life and death. And one tragic tale from the Amazon has stuck in my mind.
A couple were on their honeymoon on the banks of the Amazon. The young woman was wading into the shallows.
When something pulls her under. Her body was eventually found floating in an eddy downstream. The attacker's identity unknown. In most cases of sudden death, there's a straightforward explanation: accidental drowning, or maybe foul play. But occasionally there's an unsuspected cause: a river monster.
I have few clues to help solve the mystery of what could drag a woman through the water like a rag doll to her death. But I know where to start my search. I've investigated deaths all over South America, but never here. This tragedy occurred in the part of the Amazon River that flows through Colombia. I start my search in the town of Leticia. Colombia has more species per square mile than anywhere on the planet. Perhaps there are monsters I've never seen. But as I search for an aquatic killer, I must keep my wits about me. Here there are more violent deaths per capita than in any other South American country. The Amazon is home to several creatures with the power to grab and drown a human. The usual suspects: caiman, anaconda, giant piraiba, and possibly even bull sharks. But could the little-known waters of Colombia hold another possible killer? The fish market is always a good place to start.
I'm thinking maybe if I stay on this guy's tail, he might lead me to the market. I think it worked.
Leticia lies on Colombia's southern border with Peru. In this location, the Amazon has extraordinary species diversity, with many new species still to be discovered.
A lot of these fish, I know them by a different name in Brazil. This is tambaqui in Brazil. Here it's gamitana. ¿Cómo se llama? Perro. This is perro. This means, well, it means dog. Yeah, in Spanish, so dogfish.
Dogfish possess wicked teeth, but don't grow large enough to drag humans to their death. I need a fish with the body strength and the jaw strength to literally sweep a bride off her feet. Most of what I'm seeing can be discounted immediately.
Arapaima, about 120 pounds without the head, gills, guts, or anything, so quite a big fish.
Arapaima can inflict serious damage with their bony heads, but they only target small prey and don't use their mouths as a weapon. I don't believe they're a realistic suspect.
¿Cuál es el país, el más peligroso aquí? Piranha. I'm asking what's the most dangerous fish in the river? They say piranhas. That's the worst thing here.
The bride's body was in one piece. Piranhas would have made a gruesome meal of any victim, so they are off my list.
One other dangerous fish, the electric eel. Not found really in the rivers, but more in the lakes, away from the rivers.
Electric eels can fatally shock victims,
First go, amazing, first go.
but they're not strong enough to drag a body. The market delivers no new suspects. But before I leave, I'm told the largest fish are flown straight to the capital, Bogota, where they fetch the highest price. So I head to the port, eager to see if any giants have been caught.
Bueno,
I'm just in time.
¿qué es eso? This is the back end of a very large catfish. He says it's a piraiba. This is a species I've seen before in Brazil.
I've investigated stories where giant piraiba were accused of taking people down to their deaths. They have a mouth big enough for the job, and they can grow to monstrous man-eating proportions.
Right, that's two of us to lift that. And there's just a massive bone this end where they've cut through the head. I know that these things grow this big. I've not caught them this size. I'm guessing a good 150 pounds for the whole animal. Very big fish. This is something, if it got hold of your leg or any other part of your body and didn't let go, you'd go under. You'd have no say in the matter at all.
The way the honeymoon bride was dragged away now puts the piraiba at the top of my suspect list. But I wonder how a fish so large would not have been seen in the shallows where she waded. I definitely have some investigating to do. I start my search on the dock of a houseboat on the edge of town.
This place historically used to be very big for drug smuggling and also arms trafficking. But there are lots of boats toing and froing out there in the dark, most of them without any lights on, and who knows what might be on some of them.
Known to be one of the most dangerous countries in the world, Colombia is still fighting its long war with drug cartels and guerrilla groups. With violence common on land, occasional attacks by river monsters could easily be overlooked. Time is against me as a storm approaches. These waters are full of hungry fish.
Incredible sized mouth this has got compared to the size of the body. I think they call this one here bocon, which means like big mouth.
Even when fully grown, these catfish would be too small to have played a part in this incident. I'm wondering if all the traffic above water could be scaring away any monsters prowling below.
Hey, this is bigger, this is bigger. Right, this is one that's quite tricky to handle. It's got sharp spines on its pectoral fins here, and the dorsal fin, and it's got these sort of pointed hooks on some plates down the side of the body there. I'm just going to see if I can shake it off the hook. That's sometimes the easiest way. There's lots of activity on the line, but it's all small fish. I need to get hooked into something considerably bigger.
Something big enough and bad enough to have dragged the honeymoon bride to her death. With the storm getting ever closer, I move to the riverbank. Immediately, I'm in business.
This is a better fish, better fish, better fish.
Could this be another suspect for my list?
Oh, it's strong.
My name is Jeremy Wade. I'm in Colombia in South America, one of the most dangerous countries on Earth.
This is a better fish, better fish, better fish.
Searching for a river monster that's capable of dragging a woman to her death. And in the Amazon, you never know what's coming up next.
Oh, it's strong.
It's a freshwater stingray.
Right, it's not a huge one. It's a good size, though. This is a type of ray I haven't seen before.
All stingrays must be treated with caution, even this one which just has small spikes rather than a single long spine.
Still have to be a little bit careful because the venom actually cloaks the entire body, so even a scrape on some of these smaller points on the tail here wouldn't be a good idea, so I'm going to keep away from there. Hook out first. There we go. Hook out. Stingrays are related to sharks. They do have teeth, so they will crush something. No way is a stingray going to grab hold of a person and pull them under.
Common sense removes stingrays from my investigation. Catching a stingray species I've never seen before was a surprise. And it shows me I have little idea what lurks in this river, so I've got to keep an open mind. I want to broaden my search for the bride killer away from the town's busy waters. I take a boat to explore the surrounding area. Identifying the most reliable sources of local information is always an important part of any inquiry. Dotted along the riverbank are Amerindian fishing communities, mostly Tacuna Indians. If anyone can, it's these people who will help me close this case. I explain my investigation, but the community is unaware of the bride's death. But they have no doubt something in the water could have been responsible, and described lakes nearby where monsters still hide. I'm told to come back the next morning to meet with an elder named Jose, who will take me to one such place. Jose's fished all his life and has brought me to a hidden lake which looks like the perfect place to find monsters.
It's very quiet. Quite a sort of ominous feel to the place.
We paddle as silently as we can.
There's life in here. There's movement on the surface, betraying something going on underneath.
It doesn't take long for an old adversary to make its presence felt.
Okay. That was half a fish about a minute ago. Piranhas are always, well, they're nearly always a problem, but this level of activity is fairly exceptional. You know, they're really voracious here, just on the basis of 2 baits out.
I need to get past this insatiable pack of jaws if I'm to find what else is out there.
That was a matter of, I don't know, 30 seconds, something like that.
We try our luck in different areas. When I run out of bait, I try a couple of lures. Then I get to meet one of these proven man-eaters.
That's a very chunky red-belly piranha. So that's what's been eating all my bait. And even if you chuck in a flashy lure like that, it'll go for it.
As voracious as they are, in this case, piranhas are in the clear. There was no evidence of piranha bites on the victim's body. But they are coming between me and potential suspects.
I'm running out of ideas. I think all I can really do is save the last of my bait and try after dark. Piranhas might be less active then.
The killer could be stalking right below me, but I can see nothing in the blackness.
Oh, that's instant. They've taken that already. As soon as it hit the water. There are so many there, they are just biting through the line over a foot away from the bait. I think I'm wasting my time. I'm running out of bait, I'm running out of hooks, I'm running out of gear. Piranha's just making it impossible here.
After midnight, my patience runs out too. And I head back to Leticia. Not all clues come from the end of my line. Just as I'm running out of ideas, I'm directed to a man who worked in a local hospital for many years. He may have some information. I track down Don Alvaro in a church in the center of town.
Buenos días.
Bueno,
¿Usted es Don Alvaro?
Álvaro, sí.
He vividly remembers the tragic incident.
Seguro la esposa pasó apercibida, pero cuando se dio cuenta que la señora no estaba.
This actually corroborates the story that I heard before I came here.
Entonces él trajo la señora al Amazonas.
A couple got married in the interior and came here to the river for their honeymoon. It was the time of year when the water is low, you've got big beaches, and so that's where people go to spend time in the water.
In the blink of an eye, something snatched and dragged her through the water. Then, the breakthrough I've been waiting for, when Don Alvaro drops a small but vital detail into his account. My investigation is on the move again. I'm in Colombia tracking down the perpetrator of a baffling and tragic death.
3 días.
A retired nurse named Don Alvaro shares crucial evidence about the death of the honeymoon bride.
3 days later, they found the body. At first appearances, there were no injuries at all. It was just a dead body. Cause of death, probably drowning. However, when they examined the body, they found one wound, one injury, and this was a hole in the lower leg. Otra cosa, no.
No,
Solo
eso.
Something had done that, presumably before she died, and whatever that was could have been the cause of death.
I'm told it wasn't a bullet hole, it was a puncture. This could be a vital clue to the identity of the attacker.
A caiman would leave a very, very obvious mark to somebody's leg. It would make a lot of damage. An anaconda would actually leave multiple puncture holes. Bull sharks used to come this far up the Amazon. Maybe they still do, but again, that leaves a very, very clear signature. Catfish leave a mark almost as if it's made by very coarse sandpaper. So having dismissed all these, the obvious suspects, there's only one creature left that I know of that could have been capable of inflicting such an injury.
A creature I discounted from my investigation. A stingray. Its barbed spine leaves a single gaping wound in its victims. Normally the spine rips back out, but could it in certain circumstances hold fast? A nightmare scenario unfolds. Could a stingray have harpooned the bride's leg and then dragged her down?
This is something that I've never heard of happening before, and to be honest, I think it's very, very unlikely, and it's going to take a lot of proving.
Nevertheless, I now have a prime suspect. Following my meeting with Don Alvaro, I head to the area where the bride was killed. Although he doesn't know exactly where it happened, it's upriver from Leticia, near the small town of Puerto Nariño, where he worked as a nurse when the attack took place. Don Alvaro puts me in touch with a fisherman called Armando, who lives in the town and agrees to help me. Puerto Nariño is just a short journey upriver, but it's a world away from Leticia. It's cut off from the rest of the country and only accessible by river. We reach the community at sundown. Now I'll be searching river beaches just like those where the bride was dragged away. Rays hunt most actively during the night, so as darkness falls, Armando agrees to take me to a place well known for having lots of stingrays. To prove my theory, I first need to demonstrate that a stingray spine could remain attached to the victim, turning its tail into a deadly, venomous tow rope. To do this, I have a plan, an experiment to see firsthand how the ray strikes. But first, I need to catch one. And it can't just be any ray. It needs to be armed with a strong spine on a long tail. Landing a killer ray without being stabbed is hard enough. But catching one in the dark on an isolated riverbank in the most dangerous country in South America is almost insane.
This is potentially ray-like. It's almost as if there's still tension on the line. It's stopped going out, but there's still tension, and there's maybe a slight sort of chewing sensation. But I'd expect it to move again in a bit. There we go.
What unusual treatments are used in Colombia for stingray injuries? Find out after this. I asked what unusual treatments are used in Colombia for stingray injuries. Treatments include the application of ground coffee, crushed termites, urine, or even gasoline. It's the dead of night, and I'm in the remote Colombian Amazon, closing in on a river monster suspected of killing a young bride. I want to test a crazy idea that a stingray's spine can stay embedded, allowing the ray to impale its victim and then drag it to a watery death. So I've come prepared.
Yeah, it is a ray. It's definitely a ray.
I recognize the dramatic markings. It's a deadly Matoro stingray. Matoros aren't giants, but this one's a perfect size for my experiment.
Right, now it's one thing seeing that spine flailing around. I want to see what happens when that makes contact with something, with flesh. I've actually brought along a pig's leg. Very, very similar tissue to a human, so let's just see what happens to this. That went right in the whole length of the spine, and then it seemed to almost put its body weight behind it and really push it in. It went right up to the hilt of the spine.
I'm surprised by this. I thought a strike would be more haphazard. The ray appears to line up on its target like a marksman, aiming above the point where the pressure is applied to its body, before thrusting its spine deep into the tissue with every ounce of its power. As the tail retracts, more than 100 backward-facing barbs tear through flesh like a hunting knife. After the strike, the ray's instinct is to flee. I repeat the test, and this time, something remarkable happens.
That hasn't come out. That is still attached. That's still attached.
It's the proof I was looking for. A ray's spine can stay embedded in its victim.
There's obviously a certain random element here. If it goes in a certain place, it's going to come out. If it goes in another place, it's going to come out. Once in a while, though, it's going to get stuck on something, stuck on a bit of tissue, and it's not going to come out.
What I've just demonstrated adds weight to my theory that the bride could have been harpooned through the leg and dragged to her death. But it remains just a theory. I've only heard of the one incident. And there's still the question of stingray size.
I don't think, though, that this could take an adult human into the water. I think you'd either shake it off or you'd crawl out of the water with this thing still attached.
To prove beyond reasonable doubt that a stingray could have killed the honeymoon bride, I must catch a ray with a long spine that's big enough and powerful enough to drag a woman to her death.
Something bigger than this.
The following morning, I set out after a giant Colombian stingray, even though Armando has never caught a supersized ray here. But if my theory is correct, then it's here somewhere.
I'm getting the feeling that there's not much in the way of bait left on this line.
Bare hook, not the best way to catch fish.
Fishermen here avoid coming into contact with rays. They're too dangerous, so no one is able to give advice on how to catch a giant or where to find one. For the next few days, Armando takes me to all the best fishing spots he knows. I change my tackle and vary my bait. But the piranhas are once again between me and my investigation.
That's all the bait that I had left on there.
Colombian rivers are used for nefarious deeds, especially after dark. But I have to ignore the potential danger around me, and I continue fishing well into the night.
Quite a pretty fish as catfish go.
I try to keep my spirits up, but after fishing for days with no reward, I'm starting to wonder if I'll ever find this monster. But my hunt for a giant ray continues.
Just jumped in the boat. Is that an omen or what? I don't know.
And despite promising signs, it's the same old story.
Something on there. No sign of any crushing that a stingray might have done.
I'm running out of ideas and luck. Another disappointing night is coming to an end when my investigation is given a lifeline.
Yeah, well, my bait's gone, but there's a fisherman out in the middle of the river here. I can just see his light. And he's apparently got a ray. Might just meet up with him and see exactly what he's got.
¿Dónde está? Yes, aquí.
Oh, yeah. Well, here we go. It's a stingray. It's a small one. No tail. He's saying that probably when this was a baby, piranhas chewed the tail off.
The stingray was an accidental catch. I'm just going to go and see what else he's got.
Unlike me, this local fisherman has had a successful night.
Corvina, they call these. There's some catfish as well. That is a strange-looking thing. That's really strange. This fish here is called a mata caiman, which means it kills a caiman. If a caiman tries to swallow that, it erects its fins, and these things will just pierce the inside of the caiman's mouth.
He said he caught all these fish in 10 minutes. So it shows when you know the waters, the river can be very, very generous.
As our conversation returns to stingrays, Leo tells me some chilling information.
He's wearing boots, I'm noticing, and he says, you know, I'm very, very careful in the shallow water here.
But what he tells me next confirms that my far-fetched harpoon idea is not just a theory. This really does happen, and his shocking story proves it.
When they actually arrived, he was dead.
I'm Jeremy Wade. I'm 2,000 miles up the Amazon River in Colombia, tracking down a bride killer. I'm being told a harrowing story which may confirm that what started out as a wild theory about stingrays dragging victims to their death is in fact a gruesome reality. The incident happened a few years ago. Leo and his father were fishing on one of the river's many beaches. On this occasion, his 10-year-old brother had decided to come along. As they fished, Leo's brother was only a short distance away, playing in the water. Well aware of dangers in the river, Leo kept a close eye on him. But this killer was able to strike unseen and in the shallows.
Venimos a mirar, él ya estaba ahogado.
He heard his brother shouting. When they actually arrived, he was dead. He'd been drowned. They pulled him out of the water, and the stingray was still attached to his foot. It was actually, you know, the spine had gone into his foot and hadn't come out.
The ray had dragged him to his death.
La raya era grande, sí.
The stingray was something like that across.
This tragic tale mirrors the case I'm investigating in all but one way. The victim was a child. I felt the power of rays similar in size to the one Leo describes, and there's no way they could have pulled me in the water. To drag and drown a grown woman, I believe a ray needs to be bigger. But so far I've not encountered a Colombian giant. I need more local knowledge. Luckily, Leo knows these waters as well as anyone, and he tells me about a place where he believes there are lots of rays, maybe even a giant. I arrived at the banks of the Amazon in southern Colombia not knowing what was responsible for killing the honeymoon bride. I've whittled down the suspects, and now I only need the last piece of this tragic jigsaw. A stingray big enough to drag a woman to her death. Armando takes me to the fishing spot suggested by Leo, the fisherman I met last night, which turns out to be very close to the town. I have one concern. I never expected a giant ray to be my target. This rod might not be up to the job. It's pulled in man-sized arapaima, but a giant stingray uses its flat body to attach itself to the bottom. It's like lifting a sunken boat rather than a fish.
Where I'm fishing, it's the end of an island, and we're just moored in here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to throw it down with the current. There's a bit of an eddy here behind me, so perfect spot for something to come along.
I'm reminded about the inherent dangers on this frontier river, especially after dark. As night draws in, everybody else retreats to the security of their homes.
Oh, that's a ray. That's a ray. That's going. That is going. That is going. It's running.
Finally, I'm hooked into what feels like a big ray. Now, I just have to land it. The minutes pass and day turns into night.
Right, the thing with stingrays is you think they're snagged. The line is completely dead, and then it just moves again. Now, this is just pulling me. A stingray is not a fish that I like to handle very much. It's also sometimes a fish I don't like to hook because you get into a big one and it's a long time and it's very tiring.
I've been locked into giant rays in the past, but never on such a small boat or in the dark. I know this ray is bigger than any I've caught so far in Colombia. But once it's stuck to the riverbed, it's difficult to know what size I'm really dealing with. But to nail my theory 100%, I need a ray big enough to drag an adult to the bottom.
The fish has got too much leverage.
Realization dawns on me that I can't shift the ray from here. So we have to cast off from our mooring to change my angle of attack. But now there's more strain on both me and the rod.
The butt of this rod in my stomach is really starting to hurt.
Having come so far, having fought so hard, a broken rod and a lost ray are my worst nightmare. But in this titanic struggle, something has to give.
Right, it's coming up, coming up, coming up, coming up.
I'm Jeremy Wade, and I'm on the southern Colombian border investigating an extraordinary homicide. The possible bride killer is only yards away when my equipment fails me.
Have I got line still? Yes, I've got line.
The rod snapped, but the line didn't.
It's now hand to hand.
Now I've got real problems.
This is going to be very interesting now.
I don't know how big this ray is, but in an instant, this struggle has become infinitely more dangerous.
I've got to be careful also that I don't get my hand caught in this line.
At any moment, a loop in my line could turn into a deadly noose.
The line's not going to break. I could go over the side.
I've no plans to be dragged to the bottom like Leo's brother or the honeymoon bride.
Right, slowly coming up, slowly coming up.
I see the end of my broken rod. The fish can't be far behind.
If this fish was attached to my leg, you know, if this had its barb caught in my foot, I would be able to do nothing, nothing at all. Oh, my knees are just trembling, trembling, trembling. There it is, there it is. That's big, that is very big. That is big.
This is a monstrous Amazon ray, easily strong enough to drag me overboard, or a woman to her death if it also has the necessary weaponry. To find that out, I need to get it to shore.
I need a sort of a beach, a gently sloping beach.
Unfortunately, here in the dark, all I've got is a slippery, steep bank. And this is no ordinary river monster.
Any normal fish in this situation, no problem at all, I just grab it. The thing about this fish is I try and grab it, it perceives that as even more of an insult, more of an attack. And somewhere down here, there is a very nasty spine, and I don't want that going anywhere near me. Here it is. I really thought I wasn't going to get this in. I was using a 150-pound main line, braid, 100-pound nylon, and then 150-pound Kevlar. And this thing, when it took, it just went. If I didn't have a drag on my reel, I would have been in the water. On a rod and line, you get a real sense of the power. And this thing here, well, If those spines, and there's 2 of them there, if they went in your leg and came out, that would be very bad news. But if they didn't come out and remained attached, that would be even worse. If this thing decided to go and it decided to head off for the deep water and you're attached, there's nothing, absolutely nothing you could do about it.
Having felt the raw power of this Colombian river monster, I now have no doubt about the fate of the honeymoon bride.
A fish like this could easily have been responsible.
I believe a ray this size with this weaponry was to blame, and this young woman didn't stand a chance. It must have struck in a heartbeat, then dragged her into the Amazon's shadowy depths. I've spent a lot of time in the Amazon, but Colombia's giant rays are new to me. And local scientists don't know how many there are in these waters or how big they grow. But one thing is certain, the honeymoon bride was not the first, nor will she be the last, to experience their deadly strike and awesome power. For behind-the-scenes stories, fishing games and more, go to animalplanet.com/rivermonsters.